Let's talk about a trade in Tesla that had all the ingredients of a beautiful Confluence setup and really goes to a discussion that I had with Mike, one of our favorite traders, in the room on Friday. We talked about just waiting for the ideal setup and the importance of not winding up in tons of trades over the course of the day. This one, you can see, was all set up in terms of support and resistance from early in the session. So I've got lots of levels identified here. 451.43 is a sort of top line number in a big descending move lower. So this move down, followed by this move higher, it gets us back into a bunch of stuff that we were looking at earlier in the session, and you can see that this was a lot of support and resistance over the course of the morning. So from 10:30 until about 1:30 in the afternoon, we saw just lots and lots of attempts here to get down through this level, to get back up through this level that said that was going to be a pretty firm spot on the chart. It also happens to be where we have our anchored volume weighted average price is right up above there, and that's for that whole swing move to the downside. So that gives us one thing to focus on. That was not all she wrote in terms of the good stuff, however. If you look at this swing move lower, what you see is the move back up into that same area that we had support and resistance is also a 618 Fibonacci retracement. And if you look at this later pull back up into the 450.54 level, that gives you a 50% retracement of this bigger move. So we start seeing things come together. We start seeing confluence of indications. Now we've got natural support and resistance, and that natural support and resistance happens to overlap with a widely followed indicator, the Fibonacci retracement. Lots and lots of people follow this stuff, so it makes for a very logical place to look for a continuation move on a short. But that wasn't all she wrote. As price moved higher and was approaching the session VWAP, it was also approaching this top volatility band. So now we're out 2 standard deviations in terms of volatility, and at our 451.57, I believe it was, entry price that we were looking at on our chart, we've got a lot of things now that are saying this is a highly likely place for price to reverse. So 451.50-ish, 451.48 is where it makes an inflection, and that goes back and lines up with that original chart that we had. And when everything comes together this way, it starts making sense to plan the trade and trade the plan. So as price is coming up into that range, start looking for the possibility of laying down an offer, putting the offer out and seeing, does price come up and tag our threshold level? And in the case of Tesla here, it did. And when it starts to make the move, the first place that we're looking for an exit, because this is going to be on a 2 standard deviation move, we're looking at the move right back down to that average, to the mean. So this is the average, this is 2 standard deviations of the average, and right there is the plan for that particular trade. And we've also got confirmation coming from Bookmap. Earlier in the trading session, you see right here, we had a bunch of overhead resistance, and that's at this 451.17 level. And as price kept bumping in there, we had these sell-offs that happened right afterwards. Now, mind you, this is on tick data, so these are going to be some much smaller ranges than they appear to be, because we're not on a 5-minute chart now. Now we're looking at some just time of sales data. But look what happens when price comes back up, gets just up above there and touches the line that we had on our trade. We get this nice sell-off down in the range. And we can expect to see the turn because we see this volume sitting here. So there was volume that was waiting, price rebounded, came up to that 382 retracement that we were looking at on the chart, gave us another entry opportunity, and then came down and we see this big market order hit the tape. So as that market order hits right there at the profit objective that we had from earlier, now it becomes time to say, well, maybe we think we're going to see a breakdown through that level and maybe go down and make the reversion move to the other band. So in this case, if you want to look for an extension move, that's the logic behind the extension, is that you see that we have all these areas on the Bookmap here that really we see the volume increase as price is selling off. That'll give you a good reason, or a good inclination anyways, to trail your stop. If you had the profit target sitting right where you had it sitting the first time and just took the profit once and then twice, that's a good trade as well. That is a trade by the plan. It's a success by any measure, and it's a good reward for sitting on your hands for a good chunk of today's trading session. All right, I hope you find the video useful, and I will see everybody tomorrow.